A very good morning if you're calling in from the UK, and a very good evening if you're calling us from Malaysia. My name is Suraj Suresh, and I'm an executive in the UKAC Careers Office. And it's an honor to be moderating this session on the topic Business and Financial Recovery Overcoming Adversity. With me to gain a deeper insight on how the road to recovery will look like, I have the pleasure to call upon a diverse lineup of panelists here with me today. With us, we have Ms. Lee Soo Fern from EY. Hello. Ms. Lo Wei Yuan from ICAEW. Mr. Ryan Teo from RHB. Mr. Shu from Samsung. And Ms. Anita Tang from UOB. Thank you guys for making time to talk about this topic, which I think a lot of students would want to hear more about. To keep up to date with Graduan and the UKAC universe, do follow Graduan and UKAC on our social media pages. Before that, ladies and gentlemen, if you guys do have any questions that you may ask, that you want to ask our panelists here today, please drop it into the chat box and we will address them. If time is our ally today, we will definitely go through as many questions as possible. But please do not refrain from asking. As the calendar year turns to the first half of 2021, countries around the world are still battling the pandemic. COVID-19 has been disruptive, and has halted the economic progress that our country was experiencing prior to the onset of the virus. A situation scarily resembling the 1998 Asian financial crisis. Contractions due to cutting in spending to the economy has affected businesses and companies greatly. How bad is it? What can businesses do in a time like this to adapt to this distress? This is something that we are going to address in today's session. Before we begin, I would like to invite the speakers to tell us a little bit about themselves and their roles. So, Miss Anita, would you like to kick us off? Miss Anita?
Hello, everybody. I'm Anita. I'm from UOB Malaysia. Yes. Hi, good morning and good afternoon to everyone who's on the call. I'm Anita from UOB Group. So UOB is a financial institution that's headquartered in Singapore. And in my role as head of business management for wholesale banking, I basically cover everything that is non-sales, everything that is post-sales. So for example, I cover the performance and business management, client fulfillment, portfolio management, as well as business compliance risk. So that's broadly my role in UOB Malaysia.
Thank you, Ms.
Glad
Anita.
to be here. Yeah.
Mr. Ryan, would you like to go next?
Sure. Hi, everyone. For those dialing in the morning from the UK, as well as those spending time with us late in the evening here in Malaysia. My name is Ryan. I head group strategy at RHB. So my team and in my role, we try to evaluate opportunities to improve performance across the group, across all the various businesses in banking, insurance, retail banking, corporate banking, etc. So we look through a wide gamut of problems, anything from evaluating new business expansion opportunities to just how we shape our workforce and then how we retain our talent, right? So it's a wide yet deep role and keeps life exciting. Looking forward to the chat.
Thank you. Ms. Soo Fern, would you like to go next?
Yes. My name is Soo Fern. I represent EY Malaysia. I have two roles. I have two jobs actually, and both are 100% in a way. Somehow, it just has to work within the hours that we have. I am the Malaysia talent leader, and the other role that I have is the ASEAN diversity and inclusiveness leader for our practice around the Southeast Asia. In my past life, I'm a trained chartered accountant. My role was actually as an auditor when I started work right after the university. Yeah. Thanks, Suraj.
Thank you. Mr. Shu, would you like to go?
Thank you, Suresh. Hello, everyone. My name is Shu. My full name is a tongue twister, so a lot of people just call me Shu. I am from Samsung, and I am leading the HR strategy and planning. What do I do is that I do everything that is not within the center of excellence, and that everything else falls under my portfolio. And at this point of time, I look into the communications of COVID-19 to ensure that everyone continues to be engaged virtually when they are working from home. And I think the interesting part is that, over the past 12 months, HR has been a very, very interesting place to be in, especially when people's lives are concerned at this point of time. So looking forward for the chat.
Thank you so much. And last but definitely not the least, Ms. Lo Wei Yuan from ICAEW.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon. My name is Wei Yan, and I head the ICAW office in Malaysia. So I lead a team to deliver the ICAW visions of a world of sustainable economy. So what does it mean is that I'm responsible for the members in Malaysia. I'm responsible for the education and training of chartered accountants of tomorrow. And I work a lot with the universities, with students like yourself, with employers who are here, with tuition provider, and some of them with sponsors as well, to make sure that we have the right ecosystem for you to train as a chartered accountant. And thirdly, I'm also responsible for the ICAW brand in terms of influence and reputation. There's a lot of things that we do in terms of the profession that we share with our stakeholders as well as our members. This is to ensure that our voice is heard globally, and of course, in terms of our stakeholders as well. Personally, so today I love to have more conversation with you. I just kind of like rush back in time, because if all of you may have realized that in Malaysia, many of us can't travel, and they're all talking about the sakura flowers. I've been running around the whole of KL looking at them. So yes, more than happy to share some pictures with any of you later. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you to all of you guys for your brief introductions. I think that now that let's just go straight into the topic. As we're embarking on our first year tackling the pandemic, the idea of people working from home or working remotely is slowly becoming a social norm. Ms. Anita, do you believe that remote working has affected the productivity in the workforce negatively?
Well, the short answer is no, but I suppose you don't really expect just a short answer from me. So really, the long answer is the fact that it is really true that at the start of last year, when we started working from home, there were a lot of mild inconveniences, and many had to get used to things like not having physical documents, not being able to have quick conversations with your colleagues sitting next to you, not having certain tools that would make work easier. But at the same time, having to manage kids at home who had to do lessons online. So there was really a period of adjustment where perhaps there was a little bit of a dip in productivity. But humans are very adaptive species, and we have an innate capability to adjust in order to survive and thrive. So with a lot of the mobilization of technology and rethinking some of the processes, actually, so within a very short span of time, most had adjusted and operated at pace. And coupled with the fact that there was reduced commute time, so I would say that productivity has gone up. So that's my long answer.
Thank you so much, Ms. Anita. Ms. Sufan, you seem like you want to chime in there.
I do. Thanks. Yeah, Anita, I was listening to your view about productivity. I think this pandemic has gone on for slightly more than a year now, longer than most of us would have imagined at the start on the March of 18, when all of us told our people to say that these are the things that you need to do. We don't expect to see you in the office for the next 3 months. We really was hoping that, I think all of us were hoping that that would just be the first 3 months and that's it. For an organization like EY and many of the organizations on the panel here, I believe we are all kind of already well equipped, whether there's a pandemic or not, to work quite comfortably away from office flexibly when we need to and when we have to. But I would have to say that as the timeline gets dragged on, as we are seeing now around the world, there are some challenges. Productivity itself, I think, the capable people that we have, we will ensure that it's not impacted ultimately. But the way we work, we really have to put in a lot more effort to ensure that we balance out both the work and our lives, so that we are not living at home, so to speak, right? Where the boundaries are blurred and all that. So my answer is a very cautious one. I would say that productivity is upheld only because, you know, you've got the most determined and most, I would say, focused people working together. But as this pandemic drags on further, the organizations and the management, and I'm sure, Shu, right, you're saying that you are in charge of communication. We really have to rally the troop a lot more to ensure that we look after ourselves better, and so that we are continuously working effectively, so to speak. So it's a yes and no answer, because we have to recognize that, you know, there are some challenges, right, Shu? I'm not sure what you want to add there. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Sufan. I think you know, coming from a non-financial institution here today, like we have spoken about earlier, we deal with real products, and dealing with real products, sometimes you cannot do it virtually. Now, I completely agree with you. I think productivity is one thing, and efficacy or effectiveness is another. In order for us to really serve the customers, we sometimes really need to be there. Say, for instance, the delivery of certain products to the doorstep. That one needs people. We don't have the robots to do it right now. We don't have drones to deliver things. So sometimes we really need to be there. So to ensure that, you know, our people are well taken care of, and our people are, you know, continue to be safe from the pandemic, from the virus. I think there's a lot of things that needs to be done. Productivity is one thing. I think safety is of utmost importance at this point of time.
It's actually funny that you bring up safety, because I was about to ask you, Mr. Shu, like, how is it that your company, you know, is ensuring the well-being of your employers, and how important do you think that is now more than ever due to the pandemic?
Well, I think all of the companies here in this forum today is taking the extra step to ensure that their people continues to be safe from the virus. Working from home is definitely one of them, but that doesn't mean that you are 100% safe, because you still go out to buy things, you still go out for, sometimes you dine out. Why? Because you can't just order food delivery all the time for 365 days. So the risk of exposure is still going to be there. Now, how do we ensure? I think what Samsung has done is we follow the MOH guidelines, but we are slightly stricter. Say, for instance, that the government allows us to go up to 30%. We ensure that it's slightly less, probably 10 to 15%. Why? Because a lot of people say, hey, Shu, how come you're still in the office right now? Not now, I mean, most of the time, is because that, you know, if people are there in the office ensuring that, you know, things are done, the products are delivered to the people, the products are well checked before it goes into the market. HR needs to be there to make sure that things are done, SOPs are being followed, people are safe, people continue to you know, sometimes you forget, you know, we still, humans are still social animals. We still like meetings, we still like water cooler checks. And when you take 100% everything away from them, we tend to, you know, we get tired, and eventually you will tend to forget. I think it's a cathartic action. When things are repeated too many times, you will turn a blind eye to it. And that is something that we need to give a constant reminder. And daily reminders are being sent out, you know, to tell them the virus is still out there, it is still dangerous, and you know, constant reminders again and again on a daily basis.
It's funny. It's nice that you bring that up, because I think that besides, you know, the safety being a concern, I think that a lot of people now are concerned with unemployment, job security. You see, Malaysia's unemployment rate was the highest last year since 1993. We haven't seen these type of figures in a while. And so I would like to direct the question to Ms. Wei Yuan. What measures are your company, what are they doing to ensure job security to your employees, sorry?
So thank you for the question. ICAW is a professional membership body. So of course, we are also an employer by itself, as well as both the work that we do, our business, is to actually engage with our members. So there's kind of two prongs to that. So in our organization, in ICAW, in terms of employability, our first thing is to make sure that like what Shu said, our employees are safe. And number two is to safeguard the employees themselves so that nobody kind of like lose the job, etc. And by doing that, we have to make sure our business will continue. So one of the things that we did right from the beginning is a couple of things. Number one is to look and make sure that our finances are, I mean, we are an Institute of Chartered Accountants. We make sure that our finances are in place. Our cash flow is number one priority. Where we need to cut back, where we need to spend, we did all the finance bit. The next priority on my list was to ensure our members were okay, because as a professional membership body, we have to make sure our members are properly engaged. So that was one of the main things that I was doing in case of engaging with our employees. And one of the things that after that was we actually conducted a survey with our members to see where the businesses are going, what do they, how do they cope with the pandemic, etc. And those are actually very critical for us as well. And we continue to engage with our employees. All our employees here, everyone here are our authorized training employees. We actually ask them to make sure how can we further support them in terms of whether the recruitment or the existing students, how do we need to service them, support them, as well as I'm sure we will touch later on their mental condition, because lots of things that we have to make sure that they are taken care of during this pandemic session time.
Thank you so much. I think that so far our discussion has been very employee based. So we're looking at it from a person's perspective. But when we're talking about financial recovery, business recovery, we must take a step back and look at it in a country perspective. So I was thinking, what specific sectors of the economy should be prioritized to help expand the economy? And I think nobody else here is more perfect to answer that question than Mr. Ryan.
Well, I think plenty of people are more qualified, but anyway, love the inflection in your tone, by the way. You're making like a rather sad topic sound quite, uplifting and positive. So I think sectors-wise, definitely services, right? And then I think particularly support for the SMEs, because SMEs contribute. It was 1/3, but I think it's inching up to 40% of our GDP now. So if we're going to see any kind of recovery, it probably starts there. I think support needs to be given to these SMEs, small medium enterprises, so that they weather the storm and they bounce back stronger. I think if we do that, then we'll see this virtuous cycle where we not only see the uptick that we want in economy, but we also keep people employed through these SMEs, because they are 98.5% of the companies that are in Malaysia. So yeah, I would focus there. I would focus on making sure that day-to-day business continues to happen, so that we don't end up just going into hibernation, right? And any kind of recovery needs that engine to keep going.
Would any other the panelists like to chime in on that? It's quite of a broad question. I'm sure that everybody would want to,
Yeah. So I will maybe look at it. I agree with what Ryan has just mentioned: services industry, SMEs, and all that. And EY, as one of those organizations that have a very broad base of clients in the market. In fact, if not all, the panelists here at some point in time, EY would have worked with them and served the organization. I would say that if I have to look at it internally, and I sit on the operations committee for the firm as well, we have to, when pandemic hit us way back in March last year, the immediate thing, of course, for most of the organizations, if not all, is cash flow. Right, so all of us were very spot on and keeping a very tight rein and tight eye on how we operate, because the whole motto of principle of saving lives and saving jobs. We really don't want to have any one of our people not having their jobs ultimately. So being financially responsible, running the organization sustainably, and making sure that we pull through as a team. And the team means, the partners, the clients, and the people. That was key. And so there were a lot more. And Shu talked about communication on a daily basis. I cannot agree more. Leadership in crisis, right, talks about authoritative communication, regular communications, and all that. We can't really knock that at all. The more we do, the better it would be for everyone to be on the same boat. So yes, the first thing that we did, and I think all the organizations here on the panel, that was exactly what you would have done. Look after the people, making sure that the payroll is made and met, making sure we have cash flows to pay bills and so all that. making sure that we cut back on things which are not essential, and we will wait for the sun to shine again. So I think immediately that's the reason why all the firms here, I think we have reasonably coped fairly well up to this point. Yeah.
I
Mr.
cannot
Fred.
agree. Sorry,
continue.
Suresh. Yeah,
No, Mr. Shu,
I think I'm just going to add a little bit more to what Sufan said. Completely agree with that. I think communication is very, very important. Let me give you an example of what happened in Samsung. Is that during the first MCO, I think all of the other countries around the world was facing the same lockdown. Everyone was in lockdown, and the good thing is that the air is clean all around the world. But jobs are being questioned. The job security was being questioned. So I think what was really important back then is that yes, if you're going to ask me profit, did we suffer a reduction in terms of profit also in revenue? Yes, definitely. That was back in April. But in May, the president and also the CEO sent out a circular to everyone in Samsung saying that we are not going to let go anyone. There will be no pay cuts, and that is a belief that Samsung continues to hold forth. And I think that brought upon a very strong belief in the company. Therefore, people will continue to work their best for the company. And within 2 months, 3 months, in June, we have actually recovered into a positive profit once again. I think put trust in the people. That is very, very important. And the people and your employees will continue to, do the best for the company.
I love that you bring that up because I'm seeing that you're saying, as long as you're giving trust in your employees, then there will not be much problem with unemployment, or the term job security maybe might be, there is job security, or at least on your side of the company, there is. So with Ms. Sufan, you did mention something about how you guys are focusing on sustainability. Now, ESG policies were all the rage before the pandemic hit. It was in every business policy that we've seen. So my question actually is directed to Ms. Wei Yuan. Do you still believe that business policies should be centered around ESG, or is this not the priority right now?
I think it's ever so more important than any time now. I'm sure everybody or most people will actually know that even by now, I think by 2015, almost all country has signed up for the UN sustainability goals. 17 goals, 169 targets, 232 measurables, indications. We are measuring everything that we are doing to make sure that we the objective of these SDG, when they said, was to define the future that we want to be in. So these are huge challenges that we are looking at, and ICAW being a professional chartered accountant body, and we have members across advising businesses across UK and across in Malaysia, in the world really, where our members are located. And it's even more important for a professional body like ours to embrace the SDG, and so much so that it's included in our organization, is included in our qualification, so that the future chartered accountants are also is a part of their examination and part of what they're learning. And for our members themselves, we have a continuous engagement with them on all the efforts that we're doing. And as a professional body, we have to make sure that we walk the talk. So ICAW is the first major professional body to declare that we are carbon neutral. So carbon neutral is obviously just one of the SDG. I mean, of course, they're all interrelated. Now, and that's how they all link into the SDG, the sustainable, the ESG as well. It is now required in terms of the reporting. When people, and I think it's critical now, especially like in Europe and expanding more globally, that the companies, the investing companies, are now even more have gone mainstream, and they are all looking at how ESG as part of the matrix when they're investing. And I think now the conversation is, even as individual or what we call passive investors, because like for us, when we work, we have our pension fund, and our pension fund invests. How do they all look into it? So we are, as ICAW, we are talking a lot to our stakeholders about the importance of the ESG.
So far from what I've got from the discussion, focus on sustainability. Look at the SMEs. Miss Anita, I want to know, in your perspective, what does a resilient economic recovery look like to you?
Well, that's actually a very tough question because this event is literally a generation-defining event, right? So I think
Yeah.
countries and businesses are still grappling with what recovery would look like, So, I mean, it's not just about protecting people's livelihood today or getting them back on their feet today, but it's really to sustain and prosper. So this, to us, this really gives us the opportunity to rethink and reshape sustainable development and how to reallocate resources to withstand all the negative shocks. So some of the dimensions that we look at is actually how to combine all these economic, social, and environmental aspects to achieve a balanced and sustainable development. So as a financial institution, we actually believe in forging a sustainable future, one that goes beyond just investing for profit, but to build a portfolio that performs its purpose. So one of the ways that UOB Group supports this is really through the responsible financing, which is embedded within our corporate credit policies. So this ensures that all the ESG considerations are integrated not only in our credit evaluation and approval processes, but also in what we do as a bank. So in fact, UOB Group actually won the Corporate ESG Award in 2020 awarded by the Asset last year. So that is really testament to us really putting action into what we believe.
I think that so far today's discussion has been a little mundane. We've been talking about, how the pandemic has made things bad. But on the upside, we are more reliant on digital technology now more than ever. I think everybody can agree on that. So, Mr. Xu, I just wanted to ask, in the tech industry, in the post-pandemic world, has COVID-19 been a boon or a bane?
I think there are two parts to it. First of all, when you look into the pandemic, a lot of people say that the advent of technology begins during the pandemic. A lot of people say that the ability of people picking up technology has increased over the past 12 months. Say for instance, my mom that has never really relied on a smartphone started doing video calls during the MCO. Why? Because I don't get to see her, but I don't get to travel back to my hometown. And I think that is a good thing. But what is beyond that is, are we ready for the next phase of change in terms of technology? Whatever technology that we're seeing here today, like Zoom is nothing new. Zoom has been, this idea has been there since back then when we have Skype, but it's just that something new just took over. But if you're going to ask me, is there something really new that came about during this pandemic? Not really. But the adoption of technology will continue to happen over the next few years, with the 5G coming in, with all the government plans in rolling out 5G through the My Digital plans. I think that will continue to drive people towards the demand for technology. And I think that is where tech companies like Samsung come in, where we will provide, devices, not only devices, solutions to technology to enable people, or to enable the economy, to enable the social part to progress in terms of technological advancement and also adoption.
Absolutely. If I could add to that, I think this actually really changed a lot of the behavior of the businesses, particularly in the world of the SMEs. So a lot of them were fairly adverse to, for example, online banking, and to them, digital means just having a website. So this really changed the idea of what is required for them to do business in the times like this and beyond. So not just investing today, but what can they do more with all this technology? So I think that in a way that has really shaped behavior and changed for the better.
I think that I love your perspectives. It's coming from a very neutral perspective. But I think that one thing that we observe, for example, in the UK, you saw people panic buying toilet paper. In Malaysia, what was circulating at a point was people lining up at the banks, right, at the ATMs during the pandemic. So, Mr. Ryan, do you think the relevancy of online banking is becoming more apparent because of this pandemic?
Oh, I guess the short answer is online banking traffic has definitely increased. You do need a way to consume services despite lockdowns. But that said, I think Shu has articulated this quite well, and Anita has articulated this quite well as well. The thing is, more businesses are digitizing, particularly in the SME space as well. Everyone's getting more e-enabled, right? I just checked Zoom's stock price, and it's still 300 plus now. And this all started, it was like $76, right? And you know, it goes to show that even companies that were never going to embrace more virtual formats of meetings and all that, and were aspirational about it, they've suddenly just done it, right? Like that. Likewise with these businesses. I saw a humorous tweet just a few days ago, I think, about how if this pandemic had happened in the late 90s, we'd all be in so much trouble because we'd be at home playing Snake. That's all that we could do, right? Back then on our Nokias. So the thing is, you can consume so much more digitally nowadays in terms of content, food, travel to a certain degree still, and retail, right? So I think the relevance of banking is or maybe the challenge that we have to step up to in banking is to be able to integrate ourselves into these new chains, value chains and ecosystems, so that we are there as these transactions happen to either help the man on the street that needs either simple payment solutions to be able to buy stuff, or to just get that extra bit of credit just when they need it in a hard time in their lives. We need to be able to integrate to these value chains to help the entrepreneur that's trying to run his business, right? Not just in terms of just providing financial services and loans, but I guess overall just helping them be able to run their business well, right? With digital solutions around HR, accounting, etc. So we see that as something that we have a growing responsibility to deliver on. And then, of course, as things ease out, we hope that there will be less of a credit crunch for people. But one thing that's always very hard for banks to do right now in our current shape and form is to really understand enough about businesses and people without paperwork. And the thing is, when ecosystems and consumption are more digitized, there is a chance to be able to learn patterns and needs better, right? So we are thinking about how we do that better as well. It's not an easy thing to crack, but yeah. So yes, relevance is increasing, but so is responsibility, right? As I guess as a certain band Parker once said.
Ms. Sufern, on that note, Mr. Ryan was talking about how more companies now are more digitally reliant. How has your company increased its reliance on digital technology since the pandemic?
Okay, so I was just thinking about, when Ryan is talking about, the online banking being a lot more pervasive, being used a lot more pervasive. On the flip side of the coin, you can almost imagine that firms like EY are really ultra busy. In fact, we are on our back foot in a sense, because not just the big boys, the big multinationals, the government, the GLCs and such, looking at how to further strengthen the way they do business so that they are able to manage the current situation and also look at how much more sustainable they could be in running their organization. The likes of the SMEs are also starting to come into fray to make sure that they scale up immediately. Otherwise, they're going to be left behind or in fact shut down or closed door, because you just can't operate in the current environment. So three things I want to talk about on the topic of technology. When it first hit us on March 18, I remember our country managing partner, whom Yuan would know, Datuk Raouf, and Shu might have met him as well. In our first meeting, or first few meetings, he was saying that, we used to complain a lot. Every time we meet together as a group of leaders, we would say that, why are we spending so much money on technology? This is impossible. The amount of spend that we see on our P&L, one of the highest besides staff cost, would be on technology. And the first few meetings, he actually said that, thank goodness we spent so much money on technology, because what it meant was we were able to pivot immediately, not just in the client serving side, but also in the backroom side. Everything is on digital, DocuSigns, cloud, nothing is paper, including our personal files, they're all on cloud. So we are able to immediately retrieve things without ever having to go to the office in the first 3 months at all. So we've continued to do that and continue to invest, and in fact, close the gap. If we can see gaps in what we're doing now, we are at the stage of closing gaps and making sure that we are even more prepared, because this situation is not we're not going to go back to where we were before. It's going to stay. So that's the second point. The third point I want to make is remote working or using technology is not always the perfect solution. There will be situations like Shu said, right? We need to be on site. We need to work in a team, seeing people face to face and collaborate face to face, especially when it comes to if coaching and supervision is better done on a physical setting, let's do it. So it is one of the options given to the businesses to be better, to be more effective or productive if need be, but we should never take away the human element. No matter how far we are in our technology footprint, we must not forget that, social interactions and social well-being is very key for everybody. And the final point, Suresh, is not to forget what you mentioned earlier before we started, is to give a shout out. We are looking to hire people, a lot of people in the tech space. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I just want to ask, and this is open to all the panelists. I think that, you were talking about the ability to be agile, adaptable, if that's the right word. This is a change. This is a big change. We've seen big changes throughout the economic history. We've seen the Great Depression. We've seen the Golden Age, and this all represented huge change. But eventually, we found an equilibrium, if anything. But during this change, the transition has been rough. And I think that is something that we are seeing again. So what would you, if we're going to analyze it, we talk about consumers. Do you think that consumer behavior has changed throughout this? Because when we're trying to analyze recovery, we must analyze the destruction. So has consumer behavior changed because of the pandemic? And this is open to any of the panelists that will want to chime in.
Okay, I'm just gonna go first, yeah. Okay, if you're gonna ask me whether the consumer behavior has changed, I would say that depends on geographical locations. While we are sitting here in the comfort of our homes, speaking through a Zoom virtual call, there's another city or town, probably just 100 kilometers or less than 100 kilometers outside of KL, that is still called a kampong, is still a village that probably 50% of them doesn't rely much on the internet or anything that is virtual. They still go to a bank, and probably Ryan would know, they still rely on the ATM, they still go to the branch, go to an RHB a branch or a UOB branch to withdraw money and to bank in money or whatever that their takings for the day. I think we need to know that the digital divide is indeed great in Malaysia. And that is something that we all need to do. I think when we're talking about ESG, let's put it into context of Malaysia. We have a social responsibility to ensure that the entire Malaysia will continue to move forward in the same pace. We're in KL, I don't think we have any issues, dealing with things virtually. We can go into meetings virtually, like Sufran said. We rely on technology. We spend a lot on technology, but places like Dungun, Kemaman, in Terengganu doesn't have that, the virtual capabilities. Now, what are they going to do? I think that is something that we really need to look at. And especially for Samsung, what we do is we ensure that there are certain ranges of products that can actually reach out to these people, to reach out to these, a group of people or the cut of people. So then we can actually help to move forward in the same place. So if you're going to ask me, did consumer behavior change? Not really. Why? Because majority of the country is still covered, is still not urbanized, and they will continue to still want to see the real phone, the physical phone, before they actually buy it. Or it comes to any electrical appliances, it is pretty much the same. They would probably want to go in there and take measurements so that, to see whether it fits into the house. So has it really changed? Not really. But has it changed in the urban setting? Absolutely. And that's something that we need to address, especially in the setting of Malaysia. That's what I think.
So Shu was, just to add, so I was saying just now, I was out in the countryside running around looking at the flowers. And yes, there was, and we was in Batang Kali, and there was 4G 1 bar. So I was obviously, shaking that I'm not connected. So absolutely very true. I mean, in terms of like connectivity, even like ICW, we are very conscious of that. We have moved a lot of things to cater for the the big data years. We know that things will come, and we have been incorporating technology into our syllabus even from many years back. So not only just we talk about the technology itself, but we're talking about the ethics behind the technology. We're talking about the ethical behavior is actually very important to us, and as well as the cyber security, the big data, the data analytics. We all talk about data analytics now. So even as accountants or chartered accountants, things, and in all businesses, we're looking at things on the data analytics. But the point that I was making in terms of the technology that we are seeing, there are so much that we can do. We address this through when we moved all our examinations into computer input, so there's no more paper. It's also part of the sustainability goals in terms of to reduce paper. So we also realize sometimes, it's not always one direction, one counter the other, but all that's why the 17 goals goes hand in hand. It's never just about one. So on one hand, while we wanted to remove the paper away from the exams, our learning material, everything has gone digital. Our exams can also be done on remote invigilation during the pandemic. When you can't go to a physical center, you can do your exams on remote. But this is exactly always the other side, the flip side to this. We also recognize the challenge of the connectivity is not quite there as well. So we try to balance. We do have centers and as well as the remote invigilation, but there is a challenge. It's a continuous challenge. So part of that, you say the 17 goals, when you reduce one, and we talk about the poverty, to reduce poverty, it goes up and down, and trying to find the right balance in there.
So basically, if I'm getting this right, consumer behavior might not have changed. But what does that mean in terms of innovation? Does that mean that you would agree that innovation is what is going to help with the financial recovery more than consumer behavior at this time? How about Ms. Anita? Would you like to?
I think it has to be a combination, because you see, when we talk about recovery, whether it's an opportunity, as I said before, for us to reshape, whether there's an opportunity for us to do a more equitable kind of a balancing towards where the urbanized people are. So I mean, I take the point that, for example, the number of people who have actually signed up for vaccination in Malaysia is fairly low. And the minister did say that that was because a lot of people in those categories were not digitally enabled to do so. So that in itself is a problem. And if we are able to recognize the root cause of those problems, it has to start there. And I think it's not just the government's responsibility, it's also our responsibility as corporate citizens to look at a segment of customers and businesses who are maybe underserved and how we can help them. So I think you have to marry a few factors together.
Mrs. Sufan, do you want to add anything to that?
I agree with Anita. I think we can't look at one facet and not think about the other facet. Everything is interrelated. I think innovation with or without COVID-19 or pandemic is always needed. If you look at a company like Samsung, or even look at the banks, if you look at the products, what they bring forth, what they retire, and how they reinvent, it is already innovation with or without COVID. So with the pandemic, I think it's just accelerate some of the journeys that we need to take. Being curious and asking better questions, right, is always needed so that problems are able to be solved in the best way that we can. So yeah. My answer is definitely yes, innovation is needed, but it's not just because of the pandemic. It has always been a very key item in the corporate world. Yeah.
So let's just say I'm a future entrepreneur. I want to enter. This is year 2021. I'm feeling optimistic. I want to embark and have a new business. Mr. Ryan, what advice would you give me given the current economic conditions? Would your advice be different had I told you this in 2019?
Definitely get an economics undergrad from UCL. No, I'm kidding. So I don't think. Look, I think coming back to the question around innovation as well, because I do think it's interrelated, right? I think innovation is not really an a new thing, right? Like Sufan has mentioned, it's always been important. But if anything, I think rather than looking to must-do innovation, I think this whole pandemic has sped up innovation, right? It's just it's happened in all forms. So human beings will naturally try to take a crisis and find opportunity, right? And that's where innovation will occur. So I would say, you have to be flexible and try to be positive in your outlook. I think there's still room for entrepreneurship. If anything, there will be support as well. So definitely, try to keep a positive outlook on things, stay strong, right? And of course have the determination. But that's a must for any entrepreneur anyway.
Mr. Shu, do you want to add anything?
Right. I think in every difficult times or in every crisis, there will be businesses that will thrive. There will be businesses that will not thrive. And I think this time my heart goes out to the industries, especially like aviation, hospitality, entertainment. These are all the businesses that were affected badly. Well, to be honest with you, my sister is in the entertainment line, and jobs has not been coming in for the past 12 months. And I feel it directly. Why? Because my sister is staying with me. And if you're going to go into entertainment, for sure, I'll tell you, no, not at this point in time. But if you're going into tech, you're going to enablement, technology, I think those are the things that will continue to thrive in the next many, many years. But I think what I'm looking back, if we're going to look back 12 months ago, I think this is a real stress test that is being implemented in the current economy. I think the cycle has just come again, that some of the businesses who are resilient will continue to thrive, and those who are less resilient, they will somehow be rendered irrelevant in this current economic situation. I think the key is this: in whatever business that you're doing, make sure that you're agile enough to change the direction of the business so that you continue to stay relevant in the whatever crisis that's going to hit. You can see many companies who are there for hundreds of years. They may not have been in the same business that they first started, and somehow they've changed. Why? Because in order for them to stay afloat, that's something that you need to do. So sometimes sentimental value may not be the best thing after all.
I agree, definitely. So far, I think that what I can recap, from what our discussion has been, business and financial recovery, in terms of what they should do, focus on ESG, still focus on ESG, sorry. There needs to be a certain adaptability. There needs to be a certain, okay, this is the new normal. I'm going to adapt. I'm going to change. But I think that a lot of our viewers have been, our students who are definitely going to be going into the working world now in maybe 1 year, maybe next year, maybe this year. And I think that they all want to hear, what do you guys look in terms of the qualities of talents? Because I think that there's been this little bit of fear, in terms of graduates, like, oh, it's the pandemic, hiring is bad. So we've already addressed that. Look, job security, among all your firms, you guys have said, don't worry, guys, their jobs are still for you. But in terms of talent, what exactly are the skills that you guys are looking for? Is it different than what it was maybe 1-2 years ago, or is it still the same? Are you still looking for the same qualities? Ms. Sufan, would you like to take this one first?
Yeah, and this is a topic that we also discuss quite extensively as we progress in that journey, right? The last 1 year or so, observing how the current workforce, why some quarters or some people actually manage better than some others. And I think Shu and Ryan and Anita, I think all of them have actually touched on one, which is agility, being agile, right? I think then that's I think a must-have almost going forward. A layman term could be being adaptable, being able to think on your feet and operate without a safety net, so to speak, right? Those are all similar, not exactly the same, but similar. The other thing it's about, we also mentioned that word, being curious, being innovative and all that. I think, disruptions are going to come again. This is not the only one. What happens if we have the next one, which is not COVID-19, is something else? Can we continue to be agile, asking better questions, solve complex problems. I think that's important. But the very important ones that we see now in the firm, not least because our people are so young, our people are 80-90% Gen Ys and Zs. One thing that is very important, and not just about young people, old people like me is the same thing as well. Being able to look after yourself. Being able to look after yourself, your own well-being is key. It's key because you can't lead teams until you lead yourself. It's the oxygen mask concept on the plane. You put on your oxygen mask for yourself before you put on for the person that you're looking after. So if you can't have better me, you can't have better us. So it's very clear in the pandemic, we learned well-being, not just for mental well-being, physical well-being, financial well-being, social well-being, all sorts of environmental well-being. We talk about ESG, things like that, right? All those things have become, they're being spotlighted. So agility, being curious, focus on well-being, look after yourself so that you can be stronger to look after teams, come what may. Those things are important, and we are looking at those as fundamentals, more important sometimes than just your grades. Yeah. In fact, grades probably are less important these days. Yeah. Important, but not, up there.
Yep, that's why I'm moderating today and not reading. It's just joking. Ms. Wei Yuan, do you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, so ICW, we are the only not employer at this panel. Like I mentioned earlier, where ICW, we support our employers to attract and recruit the best talent into their organization. So all the traits, or they call soft skills, and some of the hard skills that the employers look for, we are, in a very simple words, could be the conduit, the intermediary at the time being. We engage a lot at the university. So we have a team that go to the universities where we talk not just about the profession itself. Great, the profession is a great career to have, but we also share a lot of them to what are the things, how to prep them for the when you embark on the career. We run things as simple down from the CV, writing, interview tips, to all the way to engaging about hot topics that we are talking today. One of the key things we always talk about is even on ethical behaviors. We have films to talk about trust, about behavior, about professional skepticism, all the things that we talk about. We have sort of like a training that we use a particular film that we engage with the students. So all the ways that that we engage with university students, and so that they are more prep and ready, as well as we promote all the resources that we have on our website. We have the climate hub, we have the sustainability hub, we have all the key things that we talk about, that we encourage our students to, or potential students, to make sure they are up to date with a lot of things that we are talking about. Like you say, when they go for interviews and when they have the engagement, they are more well versed with what is going on, not just the academic. You must be aware of the commercial bit, what's happening, as well as what kind of like the hot topics that we are talking about, the current affairs. So yes, so as a professional body, we that's one of the key thing is to make sure our members, but these are our future members, we actually make sure that they are well equipped as well.
Suresh, I forgot
definitely.
one thing, which is very important. I think I represent everybody here. If I were to say that the future workforce, the next generation, must not be tech allergic. Yeah. They must all know a bit of tech, or at least be aware of what's going on around them, and must be ready to upskill and upgrade themselves, through micro credentials or through short courses, even though it might not be your major focus and such. Because whether you go into a tech career or a non-tech career, it is an expectation that you are able to manage the routine, the basic, the foundation. Yeah, I think, I probably represent everybody's views here if I were to say that, that's, I think it's without saying. It's definitely the one of the key criteria. Yeah.
Definitely. I agree. So I think that from what I got, I think that nothing much has changed in terms of the type of graduates you're looking for. You're looking for people adaptable. You're looking for people that are, are driven and are looking to upscale themselves. And I don't think that much has changed, for the past couple of years. My big question would be, let's turn back the clock. If you guys were a fresh graduate in the 2021 world, would you be scared or would you be happy compared to when you guys first embarked onto your first job? Mr. Ryan, would you like to take this one?
I don't think anyone's going to say that they would be happy right now. Would there be anyone responding that way?
It's my job to ask the hard questions.
Oh, well, I mean, thinking back to my fresh grad days. Look, I think the world hasn't really become any less scary or less daunting in terms of getting your first job. That has always been there, right? I guess nowadays you think more about how you stand out from the sea of good talent out there, and Malaysia has really good talent. Whereas maybe back when I was a fresh graduate, it was about learning the roads so that I don't miss my interview the next day and going a day beforehand and figuring it out, because we had no Wave, we had no Google Maps, right? But yeah, first job's always daunting, I feel. Stick with it, right? Be brave. And I don't think it's any more difficult now than it would have been in the past. It is challenging times, but it just means that everyone needs to double down on being double down on their perseverance and be diligent.
Yeah,
So,
couldn't agree more with
yeah,
Ryan. I mean, without really divulging my age, I started my career at the height of the Asian financial crisis. So I mean, clearly it's two different situations, but at that point in time, as a fresh graduate, there was a lot of apprehension as well. But I think at the end of the day, with whether or not it is during a crisis, people will, as you embark on a different journey, you will have a certain level of apprehension anyway. So at the end of the day, I think it's all the qualities that Sufan mentioned just now are absolutely critical and crucial. And with that, I think the world is everybody's oyster.
And if you don't mind, Suresh, I can
Yeah.
help to summarize a little bit. Whether it's your first job, second job, or third job, right? It's always daunting when you're looking for a job, right? But the situation here is a little bit different. So if there are no jobs or no jobs that take your fancy, maybe take it as a blessing for a short break to learn a new skill or a hobby. Just take on a hobby or volunteer. There are plenty of opportunities to volunteer. So I think we shouldn't waste a good crisis. If you haven't had time to do a lot of things that you want to do, maybe this is the time to take a short break, financial side permitting, of course. If not, take any job. A good friend of ours once said that, you start with any job, you then go with better job, and then you go to your career in that sequence if you can't get your career right away started. Yeah, so I think that would be my advice. Yeah.
So I'm going to divulge my age. Anita, a lot older. So I wasn't even, when I graduated, it wasn't even the Asian crisis. It was the crisis before that. Yes, it is. And it was very scary because there was, in the 80s, was a huge, major dip, and it was negative growth. And I was an engineer from UCL, and I didn't know what to do. There was really no jobs, in the engineering, no infrastructure, nothing. And so I think there's always daunting. What the message was like, don't worry, as in So I was then introduced to the world of finance, to the ICAW, and people introduced me to this qualification, which then I embarked into switching from an engineer to a finance professional, and it has been a wonderful career for me. And being able to, all the talking about, you never really have one thing, and your journey, it's kind of, you never really know what you're going to go into. And I think, like Sufan said, don't waste the time, learn something new. I didn't kind of like, what do you do when there was really zero, hardly anything available? And I went to the next best thing that I could think of, and it was where employment was looking for a job. And I think the message is, as to the young people out there, it doesn't look so bleak. It will get better. There is a cycle. There will always be at the bottom, and it comes back up, and it goes down, and goes back up again. And I'm very grateful that I took on to, felt very privileged to be able to be introduced to the world of finance, to be able to qualify as a chartered accountant, and did many, many things from there onwards.
I think you want to add something.
Yes, if I may, I think I would like to add on a little bit of a different view to this. I think my generation, or this current generation, actually got it easy. I think what Wei Yuan has said, back in 1987, the Black Monday may be pretty bad. But if you're going to dial it back a little bit, in the 1940s, there was war. In the early 1900s, we're looking at the Spanish flu. I think we got it a lot better as compared to the days back then. And truly, honestly, I don't think that the requirements for talents has changed that much. Exactly like what Super said, they cannot be technology allergic. From handwriting into a typewriter, if they don't like the typewriter, it is still technology allergic, because technology is not just about digital. Technology is the movement from one thing to the newer thing, and technology has always been there. So a lot of talents out there they're probably worried that say that, oh yeah, what are the things that we really need right now? What are the things that we are supposed to equip ourselves? Don't worry too much. If you are good, you know that you are good. If you're a talent, automatically you will surface when you are in a pool of people, and the talent will always surface. And Samsung will continue to look for you. And I believe that, Sufan, Wei Yuan, Ryan, Anita will see the same thing. I'm glad to see that Samsung will continue to hire, and we're looking for the best talents out there. And talents will always emerge strongly. That's what I believe.
Thank you, Mr. Shu. I think that's a perfect way to end. End on a positive note. You made all the graduates smile. It has been lovely to talk to each and every one of you, but alas, time is not our ally today. 1 hour is up, but I think we have all learned a lot. I think we've learned that businesses and employees and future graduates all need to do a few things. Number one, be adaptable. Number two, have agility. And number three, continue to upscale yourself. As long as you have these three components, from what I've learned from my panelists, you're safe. I would like to take this time again to thank all my panelists for taking time out today to talk to not only me, but to all our participants, to everybody tuning in live. And I'd just like to say, again, sincerely, it has been an honor moderating today's session. I'd like to end on this note. Thank you, guys.
Thank you,
Thank you
Suren.
very much.
Thank
Thank you, fellow
you.
panelists.
Thank you very much.
Yes, indeed.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Pleasure.